Mindfulness is about becoming aware of your thinking mind and be able to pick it up when it's useful to you. And then when you see that it's caught in habitual thinking of maybe self-doubt or negative thoughts, well, then you can realize that instrument's playing me instead of the other way around, and gently learning how to make space from that and put it down.
Welcome to Being the Change, the official podcast of James Madison University, brought to you by Madison Magazine. Each episode brings you stories of how members of the JMU community combine intellect with action to live lives of purpose and meaning. That's being the change.
What's up, JMU? Welcome to Being the Change. Andy Perrine here. This episode is going to explore what I think is a really fascinating element of the JMU community and the holistic way that the university looks at students and their education. We're going to be talking about something called the JMU Serenity Center and the power of mindfulness on campus. And with us, we've got three guests. Dr. Mark Gabriele, he's actually a professor of biology, but he is the director of the Serenity Center at JMU. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Also, a recent JMU alumnus. She was one of the early acolytes at the JMU Serenity Center. Liza, thanks for coming to campus.
Thanks for having me.
It's so great you're here. And then Carson Hilfiker. He's a current student and a participant in the Serenity Center. Carson, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's awesome. Well, there's a lot of talk about mindfulness across the country in reaction to lots of things. I mean, after the pandemic, how we're dealing with our technology, and the effort to become more mindful is at the center of the Serenity Center. And there's lots of ways to get there. There's meditation. There's all kinds of different practices. And Dr. Gabriele, what inspired you to become the leader of the Serenity Center, and what drove you to that as a biology professor?
Well, there's a lot in that question.
Yeah, that's why I do this, Mark.
Yeah, I guess first I'd say as a biologist, I'm a neuroscientist, so I've always been interested in the mind and how the mind, how our life flows from our thoughts, good or bad. And I guess what inspired me to bring mindfulness practices to JMU is the importance and significance that it's played in my own life. And so, I think people that look at me on the surface might think that I'm a very relaxed kind of guy, kind of chill on the surface, but what's on the surface isn't always what's happening underneath.
Right.
And so I came at it from my own personal struggles with anxiety and a very active mind that I think makes me good at what I do. Sure. But if left to its own devices, it can be counterproductive. And so I noticed much later in my life than these two that are sitting here with us today that if I'm not watching my mind, it very quickly goes into kind of future, what if, anticipatory thinking. Catastrophizing, right?
Yeah.
Worry mindset. And so I found in my own life that the most helpful thing for me was actually learning to come back to the present moment, and that's really what the basis of mindfulness is.
Well, it's thank you for being so personal in your testimony, Mark, and I think that gives more meaning to the center in that Dr. Gabriele came to this with purpose of his own, and now that there's so much national data that shows that anxiety and depression is prevalent among students in school and not in school. I mean, just young folks in general. I'd really love to hear, Liza, from you first. You were one of the early adoptees of the Serenity Center. What attracted you to it?
Well, I started off actually having Dr. Gabriele as my anatomy professor, and that was my junior year here at JMU. And, junior year is a tough time.
Anatomy is a tough course.
Yeah, it really is. And, you're taking a bunch of difficult classes, and, you're just trying to figure out your life. You're trying to figure out what you're going to do after and make your life here. And there's a lot going on that, like Dr. Gabriele said, clouds the mind and can really make it difficult to do any of those things. I mean, you're here, you have to learn, you have to try to make friends and stay in touch with your family and feed yourself and keep yourself healthy. And
becoming an adult.
Right, exactly. It's like adulthood on training wheels almost. And, it was a time when there was a lot of that going on in my life. And he'd mentioned in the first class that aside from doing anatomy, he was also a leader in a meditation class. And I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but when I heard that, I was like, that's really something I've been searching for, just somewhere where I can go that can give me peace of mind and a little bit of faith, and something that, was kind of away from all that to-do list. I need to do that, be there, have this. And so I went the first time, and, afterwards, even though I had been really stressed and a lot going on in my mind, I just felt a lot more at peace. And, the thoughts had quieted down a bit. And although it was a really busy time in my life, I just found a way every week. I was like, this is something that's making me feel better and making my life here and my weeks here, go better. So no matter if I had, a lot of tests or activities or things to do, I always found myself there, Thursday evening. And I started to find that it made doing those things, like going to class or having to study all the time and, do all these things every day, it made it easier, and I was able to do it better. So I just kept coming back, and I just realized how much it was benefiting me. And, I'd bring others and tell other people about it. And it really just gave me something that I was looking for, that even though I didn't have a name to it, it gave me a lot.
A lot of students, when they get to JMU, the way that a lot of K through 12 works is that it's kind of a check the box education, and you're sort of trained to be achievement first rather than well-being first.
Right.
So that practice of every Thursday, you could carry that with you beyond Thursday.
Right.
That's great. Well, Carson, what attracted you to show up at the Serenity Center?
Yeah, so similar to what Dr. Gabriele was saying, I made it appear to be relaxed and calm to my friends and family, but on the inside, it wasn't always like that.
Right.
Like I technically would usually worry about the future. And in high school, I had a couple of like panic attacks where I just felt like I lost control. So I was really searching for.
Describe how a panic attack made you feel and what happened.
So what it started from was just worrying about something academic, like a test, and didn't feel like I was prepared enough, just always worrying. So it just was my heart was pumping out of my chest, and my thoughts are running. I can't stop them. So I really wanted to find a way to have peace and be able to take control of my own health and my own well-being. So I learned about mindfulness, and I didn't really do too much with it when I was younger, but I knew about it. And I got to JMU, and I met Dr. Gabriele. I found about the Serenity Center. So I went out there, and he really taught me about presence and what I truly am to the deepest level. And that really just applied to everything in my life through academics, relationships, and it just made a huge difference overall in my mental health.
Well, you said discover who you truly are. What was that revelation like?
Well, I was identified with my thoughts and my emotions. So I thought these worrying thoughts was a part of me. But once I learned that it was just what was coming up, and it was really just, I couldn't control it, and it was just coming to me. And what was really me was the thing that's aware of it. So
Interesting.
Once I was able to let go and realize that I can apply that to whenever I feel negative emotions, they're not really me. It's just I can fulfill them with other positive feelings.
language has a lot to do with how we feel, and it informs the way we think. And as somebody who's interested in how the mind works, Dr. Gabriele, one of the things that I found fascinating is that I think it's the Irish. When they describe their emotions, they don't say, I am sad or I am anxious. They say, I feel sad and I'm experiencing anxiousness. How important is that sort of just, as Carson was alluding, to step back from our emotions and our thoughts?
It's everything.
Yeah.
And as Carson described his panic attack, that's how I came to it. I had panic attacks in the day. And if you asked me who I was 20 years ago when my answer would have been, I'm anxious. And it's clear that's not who you are. But if you're, as Carson said, identified with those thoughts and there's no space between you and your thoughts,
right,
it can very much feel like your whole being and what owns your life. And it very much did for decades for me. But yeah, it is a flipping of the relationship that we have with our mind and how it's perceived. So it's, this conversation shouldn't be a conversation that our thinking mind is a bad thing. It's a beautiful instrument. But what this conversation's about is maybe shedding light on the fact that sometimes that instrument's playing us and we're not aware of it.
Right.
And so mindfulness is about becoming aware of your thinking mind and be able to pick it up when it's useful to you. And then when you see that it's caught in habitual thinking of maybe self-doubt or negative thoughts, well, then you can realize that instrument's playing me instead of the other way around, and gently learning how to make space from that and put it down.
Sometimes we learn the best through adversity and through tests. I don't think the goal of the Serenity Center is to remove all anxiety, because sometimes that's a strong, compelling reason to act. So how do you distinguish between our minds playing us and actually practical thinking about our own behavior and our directions in life?
Great question. Our minds are, constantly active. And how do you distinguish between whether it's playing us or actually helping in some regard, is the ability to kind of step back. And like you said, the goal is not to rid yourself from anxiety. It's a natural human emotion, just like they all are.
We'd still be in caves.
We'd still be right. So the goal is not to rid yourself of the anxiety, but when the anxiety comes, how do you respond intentionally instead of reacting emotionally to it? And so when it does come, what I mean by flipping the relationship with anxiety is, if you're in the throes of panic, when anxiety comes, you kind of brace for it and resist it. And that just makes it kind of kick the door in and come in and you're at its beck and whim. But changing your relationship is, when anxiety comes, the flipping of that is, oh, good, here comes anxiety. Because now it's another chance for me to practice. Okay, and that's why we call it a practice. It's mental exercise, just like we do physical exercise for our well-being. Part of our daily should be mental exercise for our well-being. And so how powerful it is when anxiety comes, or any other emotion that you struggle with. If you're a future thinker like me, it's probably anxiety.
Right.
If you rather rehash the past, you may be more prone to depression or sad thoughts. But whenever that comes, being able to step back and, as Carson said, make space, and those thoughts or emotions can be anxious or sad or guilty or any of those things, but the presence that observes those never is. And so it's really about using those thoughts and emotions now in a different way to kind of wake you up as an alarm clock.
Interesting.
That says, oh, here's another chance for me to be practicing presence, because anytime you're anxious or fearful or sad or depressed, 100% of the time you are not here. So our human minds are very good at projecting into future and past. And so for me, it's really about using, when you recognize that you're feeling these things, taking a look inwardly and saying, have I drifted?
Right.
Have I wandered?
Am I elsewhere?
Am I elsewhere? And then that's key. That's awareness.
Right.
And then at that moment, the most important thing is being able to be gentle with yourself and gently choosing to bring yourself back to the present moment.
Wow.
And then the last thing I'd say is thinking about the future and the past is not a bad thing.
Right.
But we need to plan, right? Bring your presence to that. And when you're done planning for tomorrow, come back to this moment. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I understand about the Serenity Center is that it's a real collaborative in that it's not just Dr. Gabriele, bringing thoughts from on high and delivering them to the students. Students are active participants in making the center happen. As one of the early adoptees, Liza, describe for us how it operates and when you show up, what it feels like.
Yeah. One of my favorite things is that it's really a community. You go and it's somewhere, it might not be the same people every week or it might be someone, new or different, but you go and you're all there for the same reason, to help calm your mind and find peace and have connection. And we usually gather and just sit with each other and kind of ask, has anything been bothering you guys lately, or has anything been stressing you, or is anything going on that you want to talk about? So, one, it gives people an opportunity to kind of, get things off their chest or get help too from others, like of what they're dealing with. And, sometimes people will say something, and what I think is really nice is, although yes, Dr. Gabriele will usually provide a lot of good insight, the students around or other faculty around also have a lot of good insight as well. And, maybe advice or things that they've tried that has helped them. And it's been really helpful to, get different perspectives and advice, but to also feel like you're not alone. And to see that this is happening to other people as well.
That requires a remarkable amount of trust.
Oh yeah, it does. And for some reason, at least for me, I've never felt it's always come easily because, the people there, you're all there for each other. And,
you wouldn't
you're
be
all
there if you didn't have this inclination.
Right. And you want to help each other. And along the lines of, listening to your thoughts, one of the first things that I did, for anyone who's listening is maybe like, how do I start that? Even before Dr. Gabriele's Circle, I read this book called The Untethered Soul. And one of the first practices they said is, imagine your thoughts are another person, like you. And every time you have your thoughts, just imagine it's the other person talking to you. And, the first thing you'll find is, wow, this person's annoying.
It's not my friend.
Right. Like they won't shut up. And then it again helps you remember that awareness of, okay, this isn't me. I'm here watching this and this is happening, but it's not who I am. And I think that's, something that I've told some people in the circle before. And, everyone just has different ways of looking at things and wanting to help. And I think it's provided a lot for myself and for others.
Well, Carson, I'd love to hear. You can't see Carson, but he's a strapping young fella, and a lot of times,
I appreciate it.
a lot of times, yoga is like all girls, and it takes a level of confidence and sort of a personal release for a guy like you to show up at what some people believe is this woo-woo kind of stuff. Just describe for us, sort of in the way that Liza just did. How you get to the center and what it feels like and what your involvement there allows you to feel.
Yeah. So I would say the reason I went there was to look for like-minded people, because it does feel kind of like a different practice. Like it's not usual for someone our age to try mindfulness. So I was looking for people who are like-minded. And when I went there, everyone was just very accepting, non-judgmental, there to better themselves, essentially. So that was just already in itself like an amazing environment to be in. And then once we start actually doing the practice, it's almost like it's exponentially better dealing with people who are doing it for the same reason you are. And so yeah, that just made a huge difference with in myself, and seeing that difference that grows in the other people and watching them grow as in myself is really just a very like hopeful feeling.
Yeah.
Very grateful for that feeling.
That's lovely. The idea of hope, I think all of us here at a university community, we're basically engaged in the enterprise of hope, because educating yourself is a hopeful process. And really I think, to my perception, there's no greater emotion than hope, because it means there's a future. It means there's capability to improve the world. As a biologist, Mark, and I don't want to get too deeply into the science, but what Carson just said is a remarkable reality when it comes to community and collective action to self-improvement. Hope really is a powerful emotion.
Absolutely. He was hitting right on hopeful about his own growth and the growth of those around him. That's sense of belonging, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned at the beginning the mental health crisis that's afflicting college campuses. We're not alone in that, but if you look at the statistics, one of the things that JMU is not suffering as much from is sense of belonging. We have a great culture here, but it is kind of, we have the same stresses, the academic pressures, the post-pandemic effects, social media, all of that, more connected to technology as opposed to ourselves.
Right.
And so the hope that, from a neuroscience perspective, is the hope for me is always your brain is this amazing organ that has the capacity to change throughout your lifetime, and be hopeful that if it'll get really good at what you decide to attend to. So I tell our students that your attention is your superpower. And actually, if you look at the evidence-based sea of knowledge out there for mindfulness and what it's actually doing to your brain, it's literally changing structurally your brain in areas that are important for cognition and decision-making and fear or lack of fear. And so I think you should be hopeful, even if you find yourself in a dark place like I've shared and others have shared today. All it involves is choosing to practice becoming aware when you're going that way, and then attending to a new path. And your brain will more and more and more make that the new habit. But it's called a practice because it's a skill just like any other.
And so, and correct me if I'm wrong, since I'm not a biologist, but it seems to me that you're describing neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity, exactly.
And so the concept of practice really gets at changing your mind.
Absolutely.
In a fundamental way.
100%. But we should be aware that what we're also talking about is neuroplasticity. We're talking about it from the positive aspect. But there's also bad plasticity called maladaptive plasticity. And so a lot of maladaptive plasticity is what's happening under the surface that we're not even aware of. So that's what, like, when your mind is caught in negative thinking, well, your brain doesn't know it. It thinks you want to attend to that. And so you get really good at that. That's what an anxiety disorder is. Or, if you have an addiction, addictions are maladaptive plasticity. Or if you have chronic pain, you may not be aware of it, but you're attending to that pain. What chronic pain is, you're still experiencing pain even after the stimulus is gone. And so it's just coming to the awareness that this brain is an amazing organ, and what am I attending to? And that's really the basis of all this.
That's amazing. Well, Liza, you're an alumnus. You're out in the world, finding your way. Have you been able to take this kind of practice with you and remain mindful as you attack the world as no longer a student?
Yeah. Well, I think, I always heard post-grad was difficult in certain ways, but once you get there, you really see it. I think it's hard because, at least for me especially, you're in this, okay, I'm done with undergrad, I'm about to go back to grad school. I was just, living away from home for a while, and now I'm back home, and now I'm working a job, and there's insurance and blah, blah.
A lot of unknown.
Right.
Yeah.
And, it can be scary, and I think one of the biggest things that I got from these sessions was a concept of hope and faith. And, when you meditate on it and you sit with these people and you remember that, things are happening for a reason, and, life can go a lot of different ways, but you're on the path you're supposed to be. And, things are going to happen. It doesn't mean there's not going to be stressors or difficulties, but you have the tools to deal with them, and you're able to look back and not, take so much worry from it, but instead learn how to live through it. And like Dr. Gabriele said, it's a practice of taking your mind and not getting so deep into, oh, what if this, and I'm not doing this right, I'm not whatever. And it's proven very helpful, and been able to, be able to go back to school and do the difficult things, and, live with your parents again. That's always fun. I think it gives me a lot of peace in that, and no matter if there's something that's bothering me or something I'm worried about, that it's going to be okay and it's going to work out, and you have a better mindset to be able to take all that on.
And Carson, for you and the habits of mind, how are you carrying that with you forward?
Yeah, I mean, as Dr. Gabriele said, it really is about what you're paying attention to, where you're putting your awareness in. So, like a personal example for academics would be like, I have a test coming up, and in the past, I maybe have thought, oh no, I have a test, and like I start thinking crazy. But when you're able to just realize all I have is this present moment and my awareness, you're able to shift that into, okay, I can just focus on this question. And doing that in a non-judgmental way really is just amazing. Like, my focus is so much better. Like before, when I was younger, it was hard to pay attention in class and like sit still for a long time. But now I'm just much more able to be aware of this moment.
Yeah.
So that makes a huge difference, I think.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, what's next for the Serenity Center, Dr. Gabriele?
Well, I'd say one of the things that when we started was a real pleasant surprise was how it felt like the Serenity Center, and when we started teaching this wellness, is how much wellness is already being taught around campus. And so it's been like this integrative kind of force. Counseling center, the health center, all of these kind of connections have been made. And so it's really been this central hub kind of that's brought kind of these silos that were all beautiful silos across campus, but kind of bringing them together. One major thing I'd mention is last year we wrote a Madison Trust grant. So the Serenity Center is a beautiful space, but we also wanted to kind of write for money to develop what we're doing. And
for our listeners, the Madison Trust is a way for faculty, staff, and students to pitch our alumni who want to invest in things on campus.
And it was such an awesome process. It's the only grant I've ever applied for where I got more money than I asked for.
That's awesome.
And thank you to the donors. And it's really about, we call it the Mindwell Hub. And so it's about cultivating a healthy mind and to encourage self-flourishing and a campus community flourishing. And Carson's part of my student at JMU. We've always been big on mentored research experiences. So it's that Mindwell grant is not just what we're doing, but how we're assessing what we're doing.
Cool.
So that's kind of where we're headed, and talking with the administrators about what's this vision look like beyond the Serenity Center. So as we grow with future programming and research spaces, what does that look like here at JMU?
Wow. Well, thanks for doing that work, Dr. Gabriele. And Liza and Carson, thanks for being on the program. It's so special to have you here.
It's great to be here.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, thanks, Mark. And remember, listeners, if you've got an idea for a future episode of Being the Change, or you just want to be in touch, you can reach us at beingthechange@jmu.edu. Until next time, go Dukes.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe to hear more stories about how members of the JMU community are being the change. Dive deeper and explore countless other stories at jmu.edu/Madison Magazine. Go Dukes!
The Being the Change podcast was conceived by Jim Heffernan, editor of Madison Magazine, and me, Andy Perrine, head of JMU Marketing. Thanks to Jenna Polk and her team at the Rose Library Studios, where the show is recorded by Cody Troyer, Steve Adderton, and Olive Santos, all of the crazy talented JMU photo video team, who then produced the final episodes at the Ice House in downtown Harrisonburg. Original music by 2019 alumnus Neil Perrine. You can find the Being the Change podcast on all the popular platforms where we hope you'll like, share, and subscribe.